Today I'll be taking you on a tour of the different food plots I've established on our farm over the years. They are a work in progress for sure. I think the big thing I'm going to show you today is that you want to have screening, so the deer have to be able to enter and exit to see what's going on in your plots. My plots are established to try and create a pattern of movement for the deer. They're all pretty long for that purpose, and to try to keep the deer on my property. So it's a work in progress, and I would love to hear what you have to say, your thoughts, questions, suggestions, comments. Thank you for watching today's episode and making it a great day to be outdoors. I'm going to start this tour with the little Google Earth image, and the first plot we're going to go to is the hidden plot. It's located in the middle of the woods, and you can see the different shape to the plot. Then we're going to fly over and up to the north to the hex plot. This plot might not stay here just because it is a little too open and a lot of elevation above it, so the deer don't need to look in it at all. Then my favorite plot, the Northwest Creek Bottoms plot. Love the shape of this, love the bottleneck in it. And finally we'll go over to the southwest to the cat daddy of them all, the Creek Bottoms plot. Now this image was taken in August 2020, so I had just done my third spraying and planted the plots. So different image, just to give you an orientation of where they all lie next to each other with their shape. I think it's just kind of a fun way, but this image was taken prior to logging and there were no plots in yet, maybe the Creek Bottoms plot, but you just kind of get a different feel. Now they're all on the western edge of my property because when I first started putting plots in, the properties to my east were in managed forest crop open and had a ton of hunting pressure, and I was trying to keep deer alive to advance them to the next age class. And so that's why most of the food is on the western edge of my property in these different plots. We are in the hidden plot is what I call this, and we are in the main bowl, and then I'm panning a little bit to the north right now, and then a finger that goes pretty much to the northeast a little bit, and then over here is our four-wheeler trail that we access, which isn't that far off of the road on the south line of our property. And this is a main trail, this is an access trail for us, and also does use it, and I'm sure bucks scent check it from the downwind side. So just going to do a pan around, show you this, and then we're going to go for a walk as we go through this plot. So these two stumps in the middle here, I had this plot forestry mulched. I have lots of great videos or pictures of going through the process of cleaning this up. This was mostly prickly ash and popples prior to logging, and I don't really know why they left those two stumps there, the forestry mulcher, but I'm having fun burning them down, and I'll show you that in another video. And so now we're kind of walking to the west, and I don't know, you probably can't make out the topography, but off of the edge of this it does drop off and then drops down to the creek bottom. Right here is access trail that goes out to the south. There's a small field by the road, and then this is one spot right here, this narrow section, that I would plant some form of screening so that the deer have to go through each of these little sections. I found that plot screen works awesome, but it's tricky. This is a fall blend, and you got to plant the plot screen in the spring, so you kind of got to plan ahead, and you need to use a backpack sprayer. So I have always segmented this in half with more of that plot screen. You can definitely make out the difference between the oats, peas, and beans side and then the brassica side. So this is looking back to the southeast, back into this main bowl. We have another narrow section here. I don't like anything straight, and this would be another spot where you could put some plot screen to segment things off, but then you can kind of see how it makes a corner and does it naturally. And one of the things I would suggest is to make sure that you do that, like make bends and turns so that the deer have to go through the whole thing to see what's going on. And I've just watched deer and food plots enough to know that they're kind of naturally curious as they browse. They go from one place to the other and want to check it all out. So here's another opening, and this was actually put here
with the thought of having a gun stand along the road over there and being able to check this out. So that could be in the works for the future because the main big creek bottom plot is below us. So you can kind of see more of the travel patterns as deer enter and exit this thing in different places. You maybe be able to make out some of those miracle tubes. Those do have crab apples in them. They are still working as crab apples, so leaving that be. Right here in the frame is a trail they dump off and go down to the creek bottoms and use the thick cover because they avoid the opening part of the creek bottom. And now we're working our way to the north again. Another little bowl just to get more volume in the food plot. Another narrow spot right here. Could be screened off, but then you got to worry about how you're planting and tilling. And then we are getting to the end of the plot up here, and I'll just kind of show you the exit four-wheeler trail that then works its way down into the creek bottom, wraps around to the north. So this is the end of the plot right here. Right now we are in, I would call this the hex plot. I don't know what else to call it. So we are not very far into the property. This is by far the most fertile soil on our farm because it is down low. We have numerous turnips, radishes that are still growing and will still provide some forage for the deer if conditions ever get harsher. It has been a very, very mild winter. So we are right off of the creek. This is the creek in the background of the frame. And then just like all the other plots, I split this one right down the middle with oats, peas, and beans, and then turnips and other brassicas. Up in the top of the frame, you can see the buildings and then also the hexagon permanent stand. And that's why this one's here. The clear cut is above you. The field is above you. The deer can see into it. I did try to plant screening along the edge of this one, and it didn't take. I think permanent screening is the answer. I don't know what form that would be. This is also scheduled to be part of a planting, so I don't know if I'll be able to keep this as a plot because I have to plant 400 oak trees down here. So, but it can go all the way to the north in the background there and across the creek as well. So just a little plot, I guess almost maybe a kill plot. And the point of this one is just to serve the movement of deer around to that hexagon. And there is a trail that goes right below the hexagon, and then I'll pan through the plot and comes out of the food plot and then heads to another plot, which I call the Northwest Creek Bottoms plot because it's in the northwest portion of the creek bottoms. So there's the hex. Here's the trail that I mow to meander around through. Deer do cut right off this hillside out of the clear cut, and they obviously are avoiding this trail too. There's lots of trails through this thick burdock, probably some of the best burdock grown in Wisconsin right here. And then, I just want to take you a different view to this little plot. Here's another trail going up to the clear cut, and then just walk us in this way since we're out here. Also have to apologize if I sound nasally at all more than normal. I'm pretty dang sick today. Don't worry, you're not going to catch it through the phone, but I do apologize if I sound a little bit different, but I am still wanting to share this with you, and I still want to get outside. So this is that hex plot again, just from a slightly different angle. And again, it's really hard to really manipulate the use of this one because of all that field being above you. And again, like always, my goal eventually will be to get these fields out of ag and have the food exactly where I want it. And I will tell you that they do love this draw. So right here is the draw that comes down to the plot. So this is where you're going to see the deer coming in and out of this area. Right now we are in the bottom of what I call the big main field. That's the narrows above us to the east. There's the clear cut. If you look real close, you can see the windows of the hex. We have the hex food plot over there. And then now I'm going to take you into the Northwest Creek Bottoms plot. First of all, here's a cutoff where they're working their way around the little island of woods here, and it's, I mean, not even a few feet. But anyway, so now we're in the south end of the Northwest Creek Bottoms food plot, and you know, this is just like they all were. This is a mix of brassicas and then oats, peas, and beans. That's the Jeff Sturgis recipe from a few years ago. I would love to try just corn and soybeans out here, and then be able to have Roundup Ready stuff so I could spray it. I tried that one year. It was an absolute bust, but the nice thing about it being a bust, if there could be a nice thing, is that it happened early enough in the year that I could replant. So I think corn is king around here. I just do. And I think that provides some screening in the plot itself. Now, we don't hunt over this plot anymore. We've had a couple successful hunts when the kids were little before I really got turned on to the different ways of hunting and then not pressuring your food plots. You know, basically I read all of Jeff Sturgis's books and Mr. Bartylla, and then really got into this, and that's why I'm bringing this to you. I'm bringing this to you because it applies their teachings and their practices. They're not my ideas, but you know, we all put our own spin on them. So right now what we're doing is I'm panning to the west a little bit. I did expand this a little bit because you got your spray and you got a little extra, and so you kind of slowly add on, just like a garden or a lawn. So natural scrape in the bottom of the frame, where I widened this out a little bit. And then here's a narrow section, and I love this plot. I love this plot because it winds around and has some of those different features in it. And this cuts off the south end of the plot from the north end of the plot. And you know, deer are gonna cut through this, and they do, and they come their way out to the main field, but they're also gonna try to travel this whole plot. And you can see the line of travel right in the middle, how it's all worn out. Over here to the left, so it would be the west, that's my four-wheeler access, so I don't have to run over my crops. And obviously the deer are using that now too, you know, to skirt the way around the plot. So still traveling to the north here, and then we're gonna make a turn, and you can see the other section. So this would be an example of a spot where you might want to throw some screening in. So there's back towards that where it really necks down. That's to the south. You can see a rub right there. There's be a lot of scrapes along the edge of this. You can really make out the difference between the oat side on the left and the brassica side on the right. This soil's not the greatest. I got all kinds of ideas and how to improve it, and I do know this method of planting food plots does improve the soil. So now this is the creek bottom down here. It's thick and full of deer activity, but really hard to hunt. And we're walking north again here, and I just want to pan up so you can kind of get an idea. That is the main field, but I like the topography. I like that if you wanted to, you could have another food plot up there someday and then have this one down here, and they wouldn't be able to see into either one of them. And so just gonna walk a little bit further this direction and then show you how this plot kind of terminates down here in the bottom. And another thing you gotta kind of plan for with your plots is if you got equipment that you have to turn around, like I have a four-wheeler disc, which is not very good at all, but you still have to find your ways to make your rounds. And so that's partially why that plot goes down in that direction. We're looking north. This is the trail that goes around the field, and this would connect to the hex plot on the north end, just to the south of the buildings. And then we're down in the bottom of the plot and just looking back now towards the main field, which you can make out below those pines. And then now we're looking back to the south. So just a different perspective of the Northwest Creek Bottoms food plot. I could probably use an acronym for that, but I'm not clever enough to let you know what the letters are right now. So just a different look, looking back the way that we came, and then I'll give you some drone footage of this as well. Just want to give you one more different view of the Northwest Creek Bottoms food plot. So we are at the southern end of it. there is a ladder stand up there. It hasn't been used for years. This is the corner of the field, and that's why that ladder stand was there. And then this is the trail that connects through the creek bottom from north to south. And it's for access because sometimes you can't get to the southern edge of the property from the road because the creek will flood. And it's also just good to have access through your property for different reasons. We also use this trail for snowshoeing. It's beautiful when there's snow. And so I'm just going to pan us back around, show you some different features of where we're at. I left some brush in here on purpose. And then I do have my Ehlinger camera, the 3D camoed camera with the solar unit on it up in that tree. And so I get a pretty good inventory of what's going on out here. So last look of this plot, and then we'll do the drone action next. So we're in my big plot. I call this the creek bottoms plot because it's the high ground just off the creek. And this was supposed to be a long, winding plot that would help keep the deer safe from a neighboring property that was open to the public. And so I kept the food as far away from them as I could and made this hopefully a destination food source. But we do have big egg fields around. And the big issue with this plot is it needs more screening and it needs more sections. And I've had successful screening in this plot before. Just this past year it was too dry and it didn't work. And so I'm looking at some permanent options. Right now I'm walking you to the north just to give you some perspective on how I have my trail system set up. So we are at the very end, north end of the plot, and I have my creek bottom access trail that winds through the bottoms and through the tag alders and out to my big main north field. So it kind of goes in to the woods in here, and then above this is the top end of the hidden plot, and I have taken you there, or will take you there in this tour as well. Coincidentally, this would be a spot that I would love to get a rifle stand up on the hill. This is right off of the road, and they obviously love to skirt this edge because this is pretty dang open. I've tried switchgrass in here, had moderate success, and we'll actually harvest that seed and try to make that better. That's another video idea. And then as we start to walk through this plot, you can kind of see, I drive around it first of all, and you can see kind of the failed plot screen just because of the conditions. I wouldn't say because of the quality of seed, I would just say that it was just too dry. And I would love to make all my plots be corn and beans, but I don't know how to keep the deer out of them, and I still might try that. But this is the typical blend that I've mentioned in all my other plots, or will mention in all my other plots. We're just a little bit further down in the main South Creek Bottoms food plot. I have a Ehlinger camera here in a thorny apple tree, or I don't know if it's actually apples or not, but it does do a dang good job daisy chaining back to the main buildings. And you know, you're supposed to put the camera boxes and cameras on trees wider than the camera, but this works pretty well with just the breakup of the outline behind you, and that's just painted with spray paint and Sharpie. But I do have some videos out there on how to put some 3D camo to your cameras. So we're walking south a little bit more, and let's have different thoughts come to mind. And first thought is I do have a plan to try and screen this plot with red osier dogwood. And then another future plan would be to turn this food plot into an orchard. Now, Siberian crab apples, I've mentioned them in other videos I have out there. They are a very hardy zone 2 tree, and that would be my goal for out here. But I would also want to kind of smatter in some other trees that potentially could have wet feet just a little bit, because this does flood, not stay wet, but just floods for a little bit. And then not have to maintain this as a food source, because it does give me anxiety to have bare soil out here this close to the creek. I don't want to wash away soil. I want my soil to be healthy. Also want to mention that this is tore up most winters. Now this is hopefully an atypical winter. It is February. We have no snow, and I don't even have a jacket on right now. And I love coming out here on those snow years, and gonna find a shed out here eventually because this is a food source for them in the late season with these different forms of the turnips, which the tops are all eaten off. They're starting to rot now. And then the oats, peas, and beans on the other side. There's scrapes all along the edges of this. And we are gonna come across one of my favorite bow stands. I know you're not supposed to have a favorite bow stand, but it's hard not to love this one. So I'll walk you guys a little bit further down and then give you another angle. I mentioned Siberian crab apples. This is one I planted 3 or 4 years ago, and it's protected in a mesh tree protector. This is 2 tree protectors nested together, and then there's a couple miracle tubes with the same type of trees, or maybe that's probably a box elder. You can actually see the creek in the background, and then I have another one of those crabapple trees over here. And you know, another piece of advice would be, if you're gonna invest time in trees, don't do too many at first. See which ones grow, and then go heavier on them. And these crabapple trees are gonna be the ticket out here. I don't know for sure when they drop their apples, and you want to play that game to have apples dropped at different times. So once again, the hidden plot is up there. If you can see the pines, it's in front of those pines. And then this is a bedding area, but if there was snow out here, this would all be laying flat. And then I have what I call serendipitous switchgrass from an epic failure of me trying to plant switchgrass. But in the middle of the frame right now is some of that serendipitous switchgrass, and I'm going to try to maximize that serendipity and get more to grow out here. And then now what we're coming on is right here is where there should be screening. And I know I have a picture and I'll include it in this video, but if I had screening right here, this spot becomes even more dynamite, because they want to see, the bucks want to see what's on each side of the plot if they're passing through. So there's my stand up there in a giant bur oak. Here's the way they love to travel from north to south here, or even be out in the middle of the plot, or they'll come across, you know, through this wetlands. There is a field next to the road right there, and want to come check this out. It's a beautiful spot. It's a dynamite spot. It's not a spot that you can sit in numerous times, because yes, you're right on the food, and yes, that's a no-no. But here's the licking branch. Needs some attention. I made that one myself. I could have just as easily put a licking branch in this section of tag alders. Then I have this bow, and then we have the rest of the food plot. And in the background to the south is the creek bottoms banks blind, and it's a little exposed. It's on the itinerary to possibly move it, maybe to move it up to there, and then be able to hunt a little bit more of this middle of the frame. I'll try this serendipitous switchgrass right there, another little bowl here, and this is pretty much the cat daddy big plot. All right, south end of the big creek bottoms food plot, banks blind. These tubes are all box elders that I'm trying to get more edge and more screening and establish another funnel. So I'm trying to create my own funnel. This has potential for a lot of things. I sprayed all of this, and it was a good thing. Different things came back and added more diversity to this, and it was a mistake, but it worked out. And there's that switchgrass in the middle, some of the stuff that made it. I have been out here taking some seeds off. There's looking north in the South Creek Bottoms plot, and then just another shot of that bur oak ladder stand. It's another one of those sniper stands. And the issue is the deer do go behind you into this thick creek bottoms. It's not a lot of woods there, and I have tried to do a tornado zone back there to try to get them to come out here. Deer can find their way through anything. So just another reason this spot's a little challenging to hunt, but it's still just enticing and tempting to want to hunt. I have a couple of my theories, and I like to share them with you. In an earlier video I shared, or earlier part of my property tour series, I shared that I think it takes a while for deer to get used to water holes. And what I mean by that is I think it takes a couple years. And I think what happens is the fawns are more apt to try them out and the does, and then those fawns become older deer and they're more comfortable with them. And I think the same thing of brassicas. And these tops are all eaten off, and we're not digging them out of the ground. There's lots of food in my neck of the woods, but I would say that it took them a while to get an acquired taste for these. You know, they do have a pungent smell. They do not smell the best in my opinion, and I think it takes the fawns trying them, and then eventually they kind of take off because they are more browsed on than normally. And I think that just means even more potential down the road for me. So just another theory in terms of how deer have to get accustomed to new things. And it's just a theory, but I think it has some validity to it. Well, that concludes today's episode where I bring you the tour of the different food plots on our property. I hope you enjoyed it. If you had any questions and comments, I hope you drop those below. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting my channel, and thank you for making it a great day to be outdoors.